All right, tonight we're going to talk about something that so many of us deal with: insomnia. You know, when the quiet of the night just turns into a source of anxiety. So let's dive right into this explainer and figure it out.
You know the feeling, right? You're just staring at the ceiling, it's 3 a.m., your mind is going a million miles an hour, and sleep just feels impossible. It has to be one of the most frustrating things ever. But what happens when that one bad night turns into every night?
Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to break it all down. First, what is insomnia really? Then we'll get into the trap that keeps it going, how you can actually retrain your brain, where medication fits in, and finally, how to take back control of your sleep.
All right, first up, more than a bad night. Let's get clear on what we're actually talking about here, because it's so much more than just tossing and turning.
Okay, so let's be super clear. Insomnia isn't just, having a rough night. It's an actual recognized clinical disorder. And the details really matter here. It's a persistent problem happening even when you have plenty of time and opportunity to sleep. But here's the kicker, the part that really defines it. It messes up your day. If you're exhausted, cranky, can't focus, that's when it's not just a bad night anymore. It's a real clinical issue.
And get this is not some rare thing. We're talking about 6 to 10% of all adults. That is a massive number of people who are wrestling with this night after night. You're definitely not alone. And the consequences, they are serious. This is not something to just brush off. Chronic insomnia is tied to some really big problems. I mean, it increases your risk for depression and anxiety, leads to a higher chance of accidents at home, at work, even on the road. It's even a risk factor for things like cardiovascular disease. So yeah, getting a handle on this is absolutely crucial.
So, that brings us to the big puzzle, right? How does a couple of bad nights spiral into weeks, months, or even years of chronic insomnia? Well, the answer is all about this powerful, vicious cycle that feeds itself.
And to really understand this cycle, there's this fantastic framework that experts use. It's called Spielman's 3P model. It's honestly the key to unlocking how a temporary sleep problem gets stuck on repeat and becomes chronic.
So here's how it breaks down. First, you have predisposing factors. Think of these as vulnerabilities you might already have, like maybe you're just a natural worrier. Then, step 2, something precipitates it. A stressful life event, a big project at work, something that kicks off a few bad nights. But, and this is the most important part, the real trap is the third P, perpetuating factors. These are all the things we do to try and cope that, surprise, actually keep the insomnia going. And this chart just lays it out perfectly. Let's take an example. Say you're naturally a bit of an anxious person. That's your predisposing factor. Then you get a huge, stressful deadline at work. That's the precipitating event. Suddenly, you can't sleep. So what do? You start tossing and turning in bed for hours trying to sleep. Maybe you start taking long naps during the day to catch up. Well, those are the perpetuating behaviors. And the crazy part is, even after that work deadline is long gone, those new habits have taught your brain not to sleep. The insomnia has basically taken on a life of its own.
Okay, so if it's our own thoughts and behaviors that are keeping this whole cycle going, then it makes sense that the solution isn't about finding a magic bullet to force sleep. It's about actually retraining our brains. And here's something that might surprise you. When you look at all the expert guidelines from all over the world, the single most effective, gold standard treatment for chronic insomnia isn't a pill. It's actually a type of therapy, a skills-based approach called cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, or CBTI for short. It's basically a structured program that gives you the tools to break those bad habits, those perpetuating cycles we were just talking about. It teaches you things like how to make your bed a place for sleep again, how to challenge all those anxious thoughts about what if I don't sleep, and how to actually calm that racing mind.
Let's just zoom in on one of these techniques so you can see how powerful it is. It's called stimulus control. See, for most people with insomnia, their brain has started to associate the bed with everything but sleep. Worrying, working, being frustrated. CBTI flips that script. The goal is to retrain your brain to see the bed as a place for only 2 things: sleep and sex. That's it. So if you're lying there awake, you actually get up. It's a total reset for your brain's associations. And does it work? Oh yeah, the results are just incredible. We're talking about remission rates, meaning the insomnia basically goes away, for 60 to 70% of people who go through CBTI. And the reason it's so effective is simple. It gets to the root cause of the problem, those perpetuating factors, instead of just masking the symptoms.
Okay, but what about sleeping pills? I know, a lot of people go there first. They feel like a quick fix. But here's the thing. All the expert guidelines agree. When it comes to treating chronic insomnia, medication is a supporting actor, not the star of the show.
So, the official consensus is that pharmacotherapy, medication, is a complementary tool. It is not the first-line fix. It's really for situations where maybe CBTI isn't available or it just wasn't quite enough on its own. Think of it as a short-term boost, not the long-term solution. And just look at this chart. It really spells it out. No matter the scenario, whether it's chronic insomnia by itself, insomnia plus depression, or even in older adults, what's the #1 first-choice treatment every single time? You guessed it, CBTI. Medication always comes after as a secondary option or a complement.
And hey, when medication is part of the plan, there are some really important ground rules. We're talking about using the absolute minimum dose that works for the shortest possible time. We're talking 4 weeks or less typically. And you've got to keep checking in to see if you still need it. And of course, a huge one, never ever combine it with other depressants like alcohol. All right, this brings us to the final piece of the puzzle. And honestly, it might be the most important. This is about reclaiming your sleep. It's about shifting your mindset from being a victim of your sleepless nights to putting yourself back in the driver's seat. And a huge part of this is managing your own expectations. So many of us get obsessed with getting that perfect 8 hours, right? But that obsession itself can create so much anxiety that it keeps you awake. The real goal isn't perfect sleep. The goal is better daytime function. How do you feel during the day? That's the yardstick we should be using. And all the research points to this one simple fact. Treatment just works better when it's a team effort. When you are an active participant in choosing your path, whether that's behavioral therapy or medication, you are way more likely to stick with it and, well, to get better. It's about being a partner in your own healthcare, not just a passenger. So I want to leave you with this one final thought to chew on. For so many people, night feels like a battleground, right? You're fighting, you're struggling, you're trying so hard to force yourself to sleep. But what if that's the wrong approach entirely? What if the real key to getting good sleep isn't about trying harder, but about letting go?